LAWsome listeners. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tanner Jones, along with my new co-host, Matt Smyers. We're diving back into Season 5 of LAWsome with our good friend, Chris Earley. He's the CEO of Earley Law Group, injury lawyers in Boston. And among many other things, he's a father, he's an author, a speaker, a lawyer, and a podcaster. Today's topic is branding with purpose, crafting a law firm identity that lasts. So welcome, Chris. Excited to jump into this one.
Oh, thank you, Tanner. Really great to be back again and talk with you. I appreciate this. So thank you for having me again.
Most certainly. I always enjoy our talks, and you have such a unique history and background. In fact, before we dive too deep into marketing and management of a law practice, let's start with you. Let's start with your background. Would you mind sharing a little bit with our listeners on how you got to where you are today?
A lot of good fortune, I feel like, right? Like all of us, had setbacks, but you keep persevering and fighting and gritting it out, right? I feel like success leaves clues. Like successful people, they are a little more tenacious than others, right? So I try to be tenacious and use everything I have. We just talked earlier before we got on, as you know, I wrote a book about my struggles with what I've had to deal with. But we all have our own struggles. And so I've been fortunate enough to make enough good decisions and eliminate some bad decisions so I didn't get derailed on this path. And I've had such good fortune and support along the way. So just very fortunate to have the life I have and very blessed, truly.
I know Matt definitely wants to jump into the book and we'll definitely get there. I know, everyone has their own journeys to where they are today. And, I think a lot of us wrestle with a lot of different mindsets, but I've seen you just over the years, observed your growth mindset. And I'm curious if you can speak to that growth mindset. Is that something that you feel like you were just born with naturally, or is it something that came on over time?
A work in progress. So I'd say when the pandemic started, which wasn't that long ago, right? Only 5 years ago, I started to get kind of traction. I started to work on my mind. So as an attorney, a lot of times we catastrophize things, make big deals out of things and worry. Well, I was like that on steroids because of my upbringing and just waiting for the shoe to drop and just being kind of anxious. And my wife was like, dude, you got to chill. Like, this is going to kill you. And so one day, I talk about this so much. I talk about this in the book, Meditation. When I was able to just quiet my mind a little bit and get focused and less angry at the world, I was able to hone in on the work, drill down on what I'm trying to build in my law firm, build a great place where people can thrive and helping the community out. Once I started reading books about mindset, started reading books about, I'm into stoicism, meditation, the success sort of followed, but I have so much work to do there, Tanner. So much work to get there. But I think my story shows in 5 years, you can get so far, right? Like you can really do so much in 5 years. And I've always, I have coaches. I'm in a mastermind. You can get so far. But for like 15 years of my career, I was doing fine, but sort of like stuck. But if you keep like chipping at the dam, they say, I love that quote, like chipping at the dam, things sort of break. And I've had a little bit of breakage in the past 5 years. So very fortunate. That's why I wrote the book. It was time to like kind of share stuff and get really real. Because I'm about as real as a guy could get in that book about everything that's messed up with me. But my efforts to do the best with what I got, basically.
I love this discussion because it's not, very rarely with the LAWsome podcast are we diving truly this deep into the human being aspect of practicing law. And I think certainly don't want to speak for our listeners, but I've been in the legal profession long enough and helping market in the profession that I've found that there's definitely a resistance. There's a tough guy or tough gal mentality often. And I think there's a strong resistance or skepticism within the industry to things like meditation or breathing, things that help you kind of to separate yourself from the busyness, the chaos of work. What would you say to someone who was skeptical with that type of practice?
Well, you were sort of taught to be, tough advocates, but we're people's helping people. So I think it's really important to understand, compassion, because I think, I think when you're compassionate, you're a better attorney. You're empathetic. You guys have been in this industry for years and years. A lot of lawyers are they don't understand the empathy thing. A lot do, but a lot don't. It's sort of a transactional line of work where it's really relational, right? And we're helping people. And so I think that attorneys are scared to get real. Like, I'm all over LinkedIn, like, talking about my struggles and vulnerabilities, and what happens, it resonates, because, like, we're all kind of messed up. We all have our stuff we're dealing with. We're doing the best we can. And so a lot of times, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's, someone talking on stage, an attorney or whoever, it's, we're scared to be real. And I feel like when you get comfortable with being a little bit more real and authentic and vulnerable, everything goes up. I feel like everything elevates. And then what happens, your business, your practice elevates. So I think vulnerability, honestly, is the path for me. Like, that's the key. Because, like, it's so, and this doesn't cost you $1.
That was a big takeaway for me, Chris, from the book, and something I wanted to dive into with you a little bit deeper. And I know we keep referencing the book, and selfless plug here for Chris. This thing,
thank you so
Chris,
much.
is just a fantastic read. Any of our listeners, Scaling the Wall, one man's journey of healing childhood trauma to find fulfillment and success, and you've touched on this topic of vulnerability, and that was the thing I kept coming back to, Chris, as I read the book. Is it's one thing to be vulnerable with your family and your friends and the people that you're close to. You put it out there for everybody, right? Tell me a little bit about what was that like for you? Like, how much fear was there? And hey, I'm putting it all out there.
Really good question. You get to a point where, I was talking to my wife. I had really tough decisions, that book, about writing about other people, not telling their story, but mentioning them in my story, which brings them into the story. And there was tough. My wife was like, "You're either going to write the story or you're not. What are you going to do?" I decided to write the story. So that was the hardest thing. I mean, writing the book was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But just being able to have this discussion, that all that work was worth it, to have these meaningful discussions. We're resonating with each other, connecting. That's what this is all about, right? This is about, like, getting cases or even like PPCS. This is about, like, relating relationships with people, and the business is a natural consequence. It comes from that, right? That's why I enjoy working with you guys, because you guys are, honest, decent people who do good work, and I like to align with people like you guys.
Can we explore that a little bit more? Because again, that was a common theme. You talk about getting more productivity out of your relationships. Right. And I know that meant obviously personally, but professionally. And for today's context, I'm curious, can you give us some real examples, whether it's working with opposing counsel or, the vendors that provide services for your firm, whatever. Can you tell us about that shift in mindset and getting more productive relationships? What was the end result there?
I'll be honest. So years ago, Tanner, we had a call, right? And I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing SEO." And I was still, like, kind of angry Chris. And I was like, I'm being honest with you right now. And you were like, "Gentlemen," I was like, kind of thought, "Oh, I can't trust this guy." Like, SEO, this is, years ago, right? And then what happens now, I love working with you guys, but I was such a different guy. And just, like, honestly, 5-6 years ago, I was always, like, trying to pick fights with people. And now it's like, I don't need to fight. I don't want to fight. So it sounds ridiculous, but, like, guys and gals like me who have certain backgrounds are more prone to disagreements. And I was like, you were really gentleman on that call. And I was so defensive, always waiting for, something bad to happen, if you will. I don't know if that makes sense, but now it's like, I see you, my eyes are clear now. I say, you're a good dude, and, like, you do good work, and, like, we're working together now. But, like, years ago, I was just sort of not getting it, not as a it was sort of a different level of it was anger, and it always came out. And there's a lot of angry lawyers. I have, like, a PhD in anger. That's what the book is about, is, like, mellowing out, because we have a short turn on this earth, right? Like, very short ride. And so the book is really about one guy's journey to sort of lighten the load a little bit. But I think about that conversation that we had years ago with Tanner. I really do, because I wasn't ready. And I wish I started working with you guys years ago, but I didn't. I wasn't really right? But when you have better eyesight and better hearing, you're not as prone to look for problems. You look for opportunities, and right? And that's, I think, what's been massive for me recently.
Shifting gears a little bit, and Tanner touched on brand, and Tanner and I were talking before we jumped on, and we mentioned your brand several times. The word that comes back to us over and over again is intentionality. Just being around you, Chris, and talking to you and observing how you're handling your firm and managing your firm, everything is intentional, right? And talk to us a little bit about what that means to you when it comes to building the brand of your law firm.
Well, I think you need to know, like, what are you trying to build? So the intention should be, like, what's the destination? Like, what are you trying to build? How are you going to build it? Who are you going to work with, right? And so I think a lot of lawyers are intentional, but a lot aren't. So I'm very intentional about trying to build a great place for people to work at, because they're going to be happy. They're going to serve the community better. So that's my intention, right? And I'll be honest, guys, my intention for years is to make money. And like, that was my focus. And like, yeah, that's okay. But like, that only goes so far. I think lawyers who focus only on dollars and cents are unhappy. I think when you know, I'm 48, I'm getting a little bit older, so I'm like starting to see, like, hey, this is about a bigger picture of helping people. So my brand is like, you know, I wear my brand, I live my brand. It's about authenticity, is writing books about how messed up I am in hopes that it helps someone else get over something. Like, that's my brand. We have a slogan that's catchy, you know, call it early before it's too late. Obviously, you know, need to make money, needs to pay the mortgage. My wife doesn't work. She's, you know, expecting me to make it happen. We give kids a private school. And so my brand, my path, my intentional path, Matt, is being authentic, being vulnerable, being real, and like the world opens up to you. You know, speaking opportunities like this on stage, attracting to my podcast, you know, guests that I never would have attracted back when I was an angry, miserable guy. So I think your attention is really important. Tanner, I hear you talking about that a lot. Attention. I never really thought about the significance, but that's what it's all about. Like, let's be focused here, right? And really get clear about what we're trying to establish here. And I feel like you can really do a lot once you have an intentional approach to your marketing and to your approach to your business.
Find there are times when you catch yourself straying from that brand, and you have to really reel yourself in.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, but at least you have an intentional focus, and you may get like sidetracked on stuff, and, you know, bombs blow up in front of you, and you have to, you know, deal with that stuff. But as long as you just sort of keep, you know, trudging on, that's what the book is about, is about wanting to do it better, differently than maybe you should have done, right, based on circumstances growing up, because we're, I think, products of our environment. Matt, it's a constant struggle.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I meditate, I journal. I'm just like a more chill guy now. And it's so freaking funny, guys, because my career has just gone exponentially up and hockey stick. And I don't mean that to brag. I'm very humble. Like, it's true, though. The world opens up to you when you start being honest and real about how messed up you are. Because what happens, people attracts, you know, people let their guard down, like, oh, this guy, you know, is real. I can be real with him. Clients, really, it's a clients, team members raise their hand and say, I want to join that mission you guys are building over there. So I feel like everything goes up.
I was just going to say, just quickly, that's kind of a perfect segue into, you mentioned about once you started to embrace that, have you noticed over the years a difference in the type of client that is drawn to you?
Yeah, so to be totally honest, I'm not, as the CEO, I'm not as client-facing anymore. That's, you know, I truly don't want to go to court or take deposition. I want to talk these conversations with you guys. Like, I like these things, you know, getting out there, having these conversations. But I'll tell you a funny anecdote. We had a client that, for some reason, was unhappy. She discharged us recently, and she read my book. And that brought her back. She said, I read Earley's book. I want to come back. That's why I wrote the freaking book.
That's powerful.
To attract people who resonate with that. Because I think you guys know this, but I want to mention to the audience, you can't be everything to everyone in your marketing. You can't, you know, I think you have to be a sniper and just really hone in on like that target audience and go with them, you know, hard with real value, intentional approach with value. But But I think that's why things like LinkedIn have been helpful for me, is speaking to an audience, a very narrow audience of people who've gone through struggle, and they like maybe some stories of inspiration, perhaps. That's been helpful for me, because we all win. You help people and you get help. It's been helpful for me, that approach recently. Yeah, for sure.
Let's spend a minute on the LinkedIn side, because I mean, you're killing it over there. You've been building a network for quite some time, and you know, LinkedIn is one of those unique social platforms. There's certainly a lot of noise, I'll say, on that platform. So it takes a unique strategy to stand out, to get engagement, and to really grow your brand there. And you've done that. And so I'm interested to hear from you, if you'll share with our listeners what secrets have you leveraged to be able to grow that brand on LinkedIn.
I mean, I'm humbled. You say it. I literally in about an hour, I'm doing a webinar. Yeah, this is a marketing suggestion for the audience. You could host a webinar. Like, you don't have to be like the expert on LinkedIn or TikTok, whatever. You can just dig into something for a few years, hone your skills, you practice, get reps, and then you can do a webinar. So literally doing a webinar on LinkedIn this afternoon, because I'm going to share what I've discovered, and that is just like showing up consistently. I post once a day. I have for many years, and sometimes twice a day. It's just this, you keep adding to this wheel, this flywheel of activity. And I was just thinking, as I prepare for this webinar, LinkedIn creates opportunities off of LinkedIn. Right, you get speaking opportunities, you get referrals. It's like, and I try to take, and I ask attorneys to join my newsletter. I want to take them off of LinkedIn as well, keep them on LinkedIn, but off. So my approach is just very real and honest, and you know, obviously I'm a businessman promoting, you know, my business, and you know, again, family to feed. But LinkedIn is like such an opportunity for realness, right? Because with social, there's such sizzle and like some fake stuff. If you're just like really real and authentic and give value, right? Like I was on a panel at the Massachusetts Bar Association this week, and a young lawyer said, you know, what's your best advice? I said, be a giver. I suggested the book, The Go-Giver, which is a really short read. It's a quick read, The Go-Giver. Like, give value. So LinkedIn is about giving value to people, right? It's not showboating and like boasting how great you are. And you know, I think you really have to help people out. I share everything, guys. Like, this is one thing I didn't do 5-6 years ago. I share how I get cases, how I develop my business, how I run my business. And this is going to sound kind of odd, but I'm not worried to do it, because I don't think most people do that kind of work that's involved with that. So I don't play scared. I share, and I share not because I'm not scared to share, but because I know it helps people out. And it obviously comes back to me with opportunities. But, you know, I think the more you give, the more you're going to get. You can't be scared to give. I think that's really important.
I agree. And that's, you're right. It's the relationship. People, we've said this before on this show, but people hire lawyers. They don't hire law firms. And so what does that mean? They're hiring the human. They're hiring who they relate to. And that's exactly what you've committed to. That's the intentionality, the North Star of your brand that we've perceived is, I'm going to show them everything and 100%. Allow them to make that decision, which is a powerful marketing driver.
There's no other way to do it, though. You know, I mean, you know, in the PI space, there's a lot of, you know, again, like a lot of sizzle. Like, I'm not sizzling at all. Just a normal dude who, like, with good fortune, was able to, you know, put a career together with the help of a lot of people and good luck. But like, there's younger lawyers that need to hear that stuff on how you can get over, how you can like get out of laws. I didn't go to a top law school. I was waitlisted. I was rejected to almost all the law schools. Actually, all the law schools I applied to, except one, waitlisted me. I got in and then got out. So to the young lawyers, like, you just got to get out, get that bar card, and then you could do so much with that. But I would encourage you to be intentional, to be brave, bold, take your shots. I think, guys, it's more competitive in the legal space now, but there's so many opportunities with social. Again, LinkedIn, right? Instagram. You have ChatGPT. I spent hundreds of hours probably developing systems. You could develop systems on ChatGPT in an hour. So the young practitioner, right? There's so much at there. You guys didn't see that, right? We didn't see it 15, 20 years ago. It's
right.
arguably easier to get going nowadays.
Definitely more opportunity. than ever before for those willing to take the action. And, part of taking action is allocating appropriate time, energy, but especially budget. You're in the competitive personal injury space, arguably the most competitive space out there, aside from maybe a couple other topics in this country. And so you have to truly fight to get visibility and to get found. And I know I've seen you invest a pretty significant percentage of your revenue back into marketing. And I'd like to spend a minute there too, Chris, because I think it's somewhat of an anomaly in the marketplace. Most businesses are taught, or business owners are taught, to invest anywhere, 5 to 10% of their revenue back into marketing. It's my understanding that you've invested significantly more than that over the last several years in an effort to bolster and grow the business. Speak to that, if you would. What's the mindset there? How have you approached that?
I think you can't be scared. You have to spend money in this space. All I know is the PI space. It's all I've ever done for nearly 20 years. So you have to spend a buck. And if you have to spend, it's either time or money, right? Those are two resources. And so you're going to need, we've gotten big recent years ago, billboards, sort of playing a different game. But then what happens is you break barriers. You're like, wait, that wasn't so scary after all. Like, what's the next level we can pierce? And you keep betting on yourself. I would encourage the audience, outwork everybody else, create opportunities. Like, this stuff it's not really that hard to do. And then you settle some cases and you have some dough to spend on marketing, but know what you're doing. Like with SEO, I have with Austin, who's fantastic. Every month we have a call, and like I'm ready for the call. Like I speak the language, and I have amateur level understanding of SEO. You gotta know what you're doing when you hire a vendor, right? Like you have to have certain knowledge, but you got to spend some dough. And you got to network your tail off. You do those two things in tandem, I feel like, is a recipe for success. But I think a lot of lawyers, and myself included, like oftentimes there's a lot of fear involved. That's a big check to write. That's a big investment I'm going to make with that company. But you're going to have to. It's getting harder. The cost per case is getting getting higher. So I think it's you're going to have to spend money if you're serious about building a firm, scaling a firm up.
Yeah. Have you found that there is an art to balancing that risk assessment and actually taking step toward risk? What has been your own personal formula for that?
Yeah, no, you have to know your numbers like really well. Like, for years I didn't even know what a spreadsheet was. Now I'm, obsessed with them, because you have to really be obsessed with your numbers. Understand, okay, I know my cost per case, getting granular. I know my cost per lead, per wanted lead, per sign up. Like know that stuff cold. Then you can make calculated risks, calculated bets on how to, grow your business. But you got to know you should have a budget. For years and years, I never had a budget. You should have a marketing budget. Mm-hmm. You should know what you're spending on overhead, on payroll, all that stuff. So you have a total command, and then things are more predictive. All right, I'm gonna spend 10 grand. I'm probably gonna get about 4 cases. Now, one of them will probably fall off. So my true cost per case will be, I'll get 3 cases from that spend. So you drill down and drill down. That's the most successful lawyers in the country, at least in the PI space that I study. They know their numbers cold. I think I hate to say it again, success leaves clues. Study those people. They know
it's the only way for you to make informed decisions, right? Going forward. That it really is. I mean, you might be surprised how many lawyers will say it feels like things are slowing down, or feels like things are picking up. We prefer to be a little bit more. Put a finer point on that, right? Because you have to know the numbers inside and out.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're running a business. I mean, again, I hate to go back. For years, I wasn't doing any of this stuff. I was sort of a caveman, and then you discover like, wow, there's fire. You can turn the knobs on your marketing, right? I recently increased my SEO spend because I understood, what I'd be getting. So, okay, you spend a few more bucks, you get more cases. More cases means more people, more referrals. That's favorable money math once you, like you said, you figure that out, Matt, for sure, 100%.
Chris, you've been so generous with your time, and I know our listeners are grateful for it. I'm interested in any closing thoughts or encouragement you may have for listeners when it comes to branding specifically.
I hate to say it again, use everything you have. I didn't come from, a law family. I never knew a lawyer, but you have a brain. You just have to sort of develop that. I have a great name for marketing, right? Call early before it's too late. I mentioned that before. So I use what I have, and I've got a good story. So I wrote a book, and because, that's not only going to help hopefully inspire at least one person out there, it's going to create opportunities. So like the best you can with what you got, get 1% better each and every day, work on your business, work on your brand each and every day, just getting a little bit better. But I think you have to be tough and persevere through setback, through adversity. Like we said before, grit it out. I think when you do that, you're going to be okay, but you have to remain, very resolute in your intentional approach that you figured out, and to be strong enough to navigate, to maybe, move the boat this way. We intend to go this way. Let's shift let's shift the direction if we need to. But the stuff isn't that hard. I just think it's just daily commitment, right? And doing the work and knowing your numbers and hustling, getting cases, networking, going on shows like this, listening to, great podcasts like this. I think there's a lot of value there for people. Just got to go out and get it.
Superb guidance. Yeah, good encouragement as well. Chris, what's the best way for listeners to find you?
Yeah, I'll give you my cell number. I'd love to hear from you. I love geeking out on this stuff. I love talking with lawyers. No matter where you are in your career, no matter what you do, where the country, call me. I'd love to talk with you. My cell number, it's area code 617-956-2501, 617-956-2501. And thank you guys for plugging the book. Please check out my book, Scaling the Wall. It's on Amazon. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you pick it up and you buy it. But please reach out. Again, I'm not doing anything really too crazy over here. Just a guy getting after it and taking bets. So I encourage you all to do the same and reach out. I'd love to talk with you.
Chris is extraordinarily humble, as you can all observe. And Matt and I, we have two strong endorsements of the book. We do encourage that. We're going to drop the book link over to Amazon in the show notes. So if you're listening and want to check that out, you can get the direct link that way. I'll also mention that much like Chris, we like to get out there to various conferences, and we've got the upcoming PILMA Super Summit. Chris is actually going to be there in attendance, right? You be there?
Great event. Love the summit. PILMA's wonderful.
It's going to be held in Denver, Colorado, April 29th through May 2nd. I would encourage you, if you've not already registered for that, please do. We'd love to see you there out in beautiful Colorado. We'll be featuring the Consult Webbies Awards. So we're going to be looking through all the websites of those who are in attendance and assessing ultimately how they are producing visibility in cases online. We're going to be grading those sites and awarding the top 3 strongest sites in the room. So we'd love for you to be a part of that. Finally, I would ask, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the podcast. We love our subscribers. We want to commit to continuing to provide as much valuable information as you've observed already with this discussion with Chris. Tons in store this year. And Chris, I just want to thank you again. It's been an honor. Looking forward to it.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Wonderful working with you. Thank you for having me back again. I mean it. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you guys so much.
Chris, thanks, Chris.